Legal implications of the PEPT ruling. If you believe the hashtag All Eyes on the Judiciary, you must be shocked to realize that a social media label could have a real-time soporific effect. This was exactly what happened when judges at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal took their judgment seat at the tribunal last Wednesday. It was as if only the judges were immune from the political nitrous oxide of the judgment released in the courtroom as everyone, including the lawyers, journalists and observers, dozed off. Only the camera operators and the judges stayed awake. The Americans and their allies heckled the tribunal into agreeing to televise the ruling, but the judges had the last laugh, saving their faces from the click light. While the justices played Padol with their faces, their decisions have changed the canons of the law of evidence and judicial interpretation. It recalls the colonial days in Western Nigerians, when illiterate subjects intercepted the action of their colonial overlords in intercepting their actions. Contrary to the social media whalers, nobody lost at the tribunal. One petitioner and one defendant, Peter Obi and Kasim Shettima, had the process that led to their candidature affirmed as legit. Never again will anyone institute that Obi or Shettima was not properly nominated without running afoul of the dreaded cyber-stalking law that criminalized such conduct. How would we have known that the saying ignorance of the law is not an excuse? It's a lie. In my Lord Justice Haruna's ruling, he said that it was not Shettima's fault that he contested for 2 political posts in one electoral cycle. The learned justice ruled that he did so out of ignorance and could therefore not be blamed for the mistake. This must be a mitigating defense. The next time you argue against a buyer for not having the emergency triangles or driving without a license, just tell them that you were ignorant of that position of the law. Caveat emptor. Be sure to have the service of a good senior advocate to back you up on that. In Nigeria, ignorance of the law is now an excuse. Another kernel of justice rewritten by the tribunal is that you need a formal trial and a conviction to be considered an ex-convict. Milords ruled that even though President Tinubu paid a fine running close to $500 million of drugs peddling in America, he was not convicted by an American court and should never be considered or called an ex-con. This fine was as legit as paying tithes to your pastor. The second leg of that ruling is that after 10 years, a conviction footprint is wiped off the slate. This ruling is perhaps the most important. Our country is filled with very important ex-prisoners who would love to return to their pre-conviction status as VIPs, but who are limited by the impression that their conviction disqualifies them. They must be over the moon to know that the requirement is 10 years in purgatory to return to the paradise of reckoning. With this ruling, famous armed robbers, bank executives, and political bring-ins are free to return to the field of public office to the shame of those walking the straight and narrow. The election is bound to throw up interesting candidates. Up to the judgment of the PPT, African assessors of democracy thought that an election was nothing until it had endorsement of foreign observers. Ex-Gabonese president and Zimbabwe's Emerson saw the fallacy of that when they took the bold decision of running their most recent incumbency ratification polls without inviting or accrediting foreign observers. Believe it or not, they won without a contest. In the case of Zimbabwe, local observers were arrested and locked up for the crime of meddlesomeness. Now, Milord have ruled that the boring reports of observers, such as the European Union and the EU, had no inadmissibility in the law. You are not our electoral supervisors or observers. So henceforth, share your observation with your wife and children and save us the task of reading them or evaluating them. This unprecedented ruling should save Africa a lot of printing ink, paper and lamination pouches used in this accreditation of these intrusive interlopers. It should reduce Africa's carbon footprint as it limits the numbers of flights and pollution that comes from them driving around in their exclusive 4x4s blowing in the faces of voters in the name of observing polls. We warned that Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) that Nigeria is not ripe for electronic or digital voting when it went ahead to propose spending 150 billion in the procurement of the accreditation device. According to the website statista.com, only about 40 million Nigerians have access to mobile devices. The rest wouldn't know what to do if they found an iPad on the street. However, INEC went ahead and purchased gadgets knowing that we have an energy crisis. The tribunal ruling that INEC is not obliged to upload its results to its web portals even when it promised to a navocano of judicial excuses. It justifies Aruf Arabashola, who introduced the Oponimo in the defunct state of Osun without digitalizing mock JAMB or NECO examinations. Instead of pretending to be moving with the world of technology, Nigeria and Africa should consider internationalizing the analog use of fingerprints or adoption of use of marbles as they do in Gambia. It is an opportunity to look inward. Time would not permit us to list other innovations in the judicial interpretation issued by the electoral tribunals. Suffice is to say that Abuja residents have finally lost their uppity status of thinking they are the 37th state of the federation. Milord had ruled that Abuja is nothing but a geographical construct with a presumed political status, even if Nyesom Wike thinks he is its emperor. Lokoja, the poorest state capital in Nigeria, has some electoral value than the glorified FCT. This must be a consolation to my outgoing governor, Yaya Bello, and us, his subjects. We are more important than you, the Abujans. As the indefatigable Atiku Abubakar and the indomitable Peter Obi takes the appeal to the Supreme Court, while Tinubu perfects his victory downsteps. Their supporters should resist the urge to create another hashtag that might have a soporific effect on the nation state of televised mass. Contrary to the impression that the Supreme Court has the final say in these matters, there is an ECOWAS Court of Justice in Abuja and a World Court at the Hue before an appeal to the United Nations. God bless the senior advocates. Okay, now this is what the writer has to say. Well, Nigerians are just anxious concerning the Presidential Election Tribunal. Well, I'm dropping this now. What's your take on this? Kindly drop your thought below the comment section and don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't. Thank you.